Back live tonight, here in Focus. The Institute for Economic Justice and hashtag Pay the Grants have filed court papers challenging unlawful regulations which exclude millions of people from receiving their social relief of distress grant. The civil society groups argue that laws governing the 350 Rand grant are unjustified and violate the rights of millions of deserving South Africans. For more on that conversation, we're joined now by Dr. Gilad co-director at the Institute for Economic Justice. Dr. Isaac, good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on tonight here on In Focus. The Minister of Social Development says this about the grant, saying the South African Security Agency received more than 13.5 million applications of the SRD grant as of the end of January, and more than 716 tertiary graduates applied. 7.4 million and 7.8 applications were approved every month. All our assessments and payments are up to date and running smoothly from one month to the next. Why are you worried about how this scheme is being run?
Well, we're worried because there's about 16 million eligible people in South Africa, and about 8 million of those, as we've heard, are receiving this grant. So, that's a clear indication that there's something wrong. What we know from thousands of applicants is that there have been deliberate obstacles which is placed in the way of accessing this, and that the regulations themselves deliberately and willfully exclude large numbers of those that are eligible. Over and above this, there is about 1.2 million people from the government's own information who have been approved and who actually have not been paid. So there's a significant breakdown here in ensuring that this grant reaches those whom it is targeted at.
So when you ask the department, or at least when you ask SASSA, they say, well, we've introduced these new regulations to ensure that only eligible individuals are able to access the SRD grant.
Yeah, I mean, we look at those regulations carefully. So these regulations first came into effect in April 2022 and have been through a few iterations after that. And our challenge is very specific on elements of those which deliberately exclude those whom it is targeted at. So let me give your viewers some examples. You're supposed to be eligible if you earn less than the means test of 624 Rand. And they assess this in part through looking at one's bank income. Now, let's say you receive a transfer from one's brother, so one isn't starving. Okay, let's say you receive spousal maintenance. Okay, let's say you receive a once-off gift. In fact, sometimes perversely, if you receive a child support grant on behalf of a child, these are then picked up as being income, which should refer to a steady, regular source of income from work or investments. And on those grounds, on the grounds that you were sent a few hundred Rand, or on the grounds that your account is being shared by your entire family, you are then excluded from receiving this. If you don't have internet access and can't apply online, which is the only application mean, opposed to like all other social grants at a SASSA office, then you're simply excluded. And then if you're unfairly excluded in the first instance, in the appeals process, in which pretty much everyone is failing in their appeal, you're unable to introduce new information. So let's say you're excluded on the supposed basis, which happens often, that you are receiving UIF payments, okay? And you've got proof that you aren't getting UIF payments. You are unable in the appeals process to actually offer that proof.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's very concrete and tangible elements of the system which we are challenging.
So how are you explaining the increased number of applications that have been flagged for fraud over at least the last 3 months? In fact, the SASSA saying since February, April, and May.
Listen, there is no doubt that there's probably ineligible applicants applying. That speaks to the sort of desperate need that is out there. But we're, fortunate in South Africa that there is good data on surveys of income, of the nature of the population, and about 4 or 5 research studies put the estimated number of eligible people at about 16 upwards million. And so, if the system catches some fraudulent applications, then that's fine. But the system shouldn't be designed to exclude half or many millions of those to which it is targeted at. And we actually know that it was designed to exclude. DSD itself in Parliament says that they were allocated a budget, and that budget is enough for 8.5 million people. And the department only has a budget, hence needed to add administrative processes to ensure it remained within allocation. It designed the administrative processes to limit the number of applicants, and that is unlawful and unconstitutional.
So you're saying this issue that they're raising, that they in fact, when we asked them here on the show, they said we check the status every month. So some of the individuals, their conditions of employment, for example, would have changed. And we pick this up by looking at the activity in their bank accounts. And hence, that's why they become booted out of the system. You're saying they're making a big deal out of that? People's situation has not changed that drastically?
We're saying that bank accounts, for instance, are unfair, and the way in which bank accounts are being used is a irrational and unfair way of measuring income. You cannot consider every amount which flows through a bank account to be income. If one is receiving spousal payments for one's kid from one's ex-husband, on those grounds, you cannot be eliminated from accessing the SRD grant, and yet you are. So, the concrete mechanisms which are being used are excluding those for whom this grant is actually designed to be serving.
Yeah, that's the argument, though. They're arguing that, for example, if you are getting that spousal support, you don't qualify, because they're saying it was designed purely for people who are not getting any form of grant, any form of money coming into their bank account.
I know, but let's take that to its logical conclusion, okay? If you're not getting anything, right, you're dead, right? That's the, you know, I mean, it's a mad proposition, okay? That people are obviously receiving something because people are eating and many starving, right? So if you're going to place the bar of receiving something to include every cent that everybody gets, right, then you're excluding everybody because you can't survive without receiving either in cash or in kind, right? So the grant can't be designed for people who have no other means of receiving money. It's designed for those who can't receive income, who are unable to work and to earn money above a certain level.
Yeah. The other thing that you're raising is that the actual number, the quantum, the 350, is in itself also unconstitutional because it has been literally chowed away now by inflation. Where would you have placed that amount now? Because when it was introduced in 2020, I suppose the inflation was sitting at a different place and the conditions economically were different.
Yeah, I mean, one could talk about what it would mean to increase that by the inflation which we've seen. You know, that would still only raise it above 400 Rand. What we would say is that the immediate need right now is to raise that to the level of the food poverty line, right, which is 683 Rand, and to make sure that those receiving that can at least secure those most basic food items. That is still insufficient in the medium term because one's not only buying those basic items for oneself, but it's being shared in one's family. In the court papers themselves, we don't ask a court to prescribe a quantum to a government. That's not really the role of a court. What we ask is that the retrogression, this eating away that you've mentioned, needs to be immediately addressed, and that government needs to put in place a plan to see the progressive increase in both the grant value and the raising of the income threshold for eligibility.
All right, Dr. Isaacs, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on. Dr. Gilad, co-director at the Institute for Economic Justice.